Yep. So I figured everybody can have a nice break from staring at the election results. It's not just the United States affected here; it's everybody around the world. So it's been interesting watching like events like this that really matter, and you all should be taking note of times like this where the entire business world is like on its toes. Most business leaders are looking at this going, they just want to know so they know how to react. Your clients, this is one of the top things on their minds, to keep that in mind. Like Richard Bauer, you're in South Africa and you're sitting on pins and needles. So how does that affect the rest of the world? And when doing annual sessions, you should keep in mind what is the relevant topic of this year. So this year, it's really easy. I mean, come on, pandemic. It's super simple. But most years, now is your time to think, how did we do? And some of you like to go to Google Zeitgeist. Some of you look at the different economic digests out there to see like how did we do, what portions of the world are positive and negative, and how does this affect my clients. And a couple of weeks ago we talked about what was the topic, pay attention to unemployment in your local towns and cities, because that'll let you know if your clients are high confidence or low confidence when they're buying.
Well, and I think you can get into some details on this. I had a lot of, as many we're in the oil and gas industry, and I mean, don't assume anything. I guess this year we can all assume that pandemic had a big impact on our clients, but going forward, really, get into some details. One of the examples I had was a service company works in the oil field service, and for you guys that know anything about oil field industry, there's a lot to it. I mean, a whole lot to it, and servicing other companies, in the various needs is a big section of that. So
Oh, it's
anyway,
easy. You take it out of the ground, you put it in the car.
yeah, it seems really easy, until you start tracing the line and your brain explodes, understanding, all that goes into it. But so I start out with this company, and I think I know what they do. I'm jumping in there. And I'm like, let's dive into things. I've already got this preconceived notion going into this that I know a little bit about their infrastructure. I'm thinking these guys need to spend some serious coin. Oil prices were high at the time, so I'm thinking, these guys are rolling in the dough. Let's get some projects done while we got the cash flow. And I get in there and I find out that these guys and how they deal with these service industries and the specific area that they work in was actually in a bit of a down cycle. And so they're having these enormous problems competing with companies in the same geography that are on a boom cycle. And understanding where that company was at, understanding their business, what was really going well for them, what wasn't going well for them, getting involved in that was a real game changer for me. And it really, really changed the way I approached them. And if you don't understand this with your clients, then you're going to do what I almost did there. And you're going to go, hey, you guys got tons of cash. Let me sell you some big projects. And the reality was they were really cash constrained, and they were not, on board with big projects. So, you really have to understand what's going on in your clients' environments.
Yeah, and to that end, what I want to hit on today is when we talked last week a lot about roadmap planning, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this week, but the important part is context. So asking that question that some of you learned is really important of, how did this year go for you? Just open-ended question. What went well? What could have gone better? Ask them their story, because their take on what happened this year might have been really good. Like the pandemic may have helped push them to a new level, may have helped their product line. The pandemic may have hurt them. You don't know, but you should sit and ask. Don't make assumptions. Just ask
Yeah.
what went well this year and use that to do your roadmap planning. And so the big tip here is adding context to your conversation. And so sending out an email ahead of time saying, hey, during our annual session, we'd really like to hear from you, like some of the highlights and the low points of the year, so that we can change your strategy and propose a strategy that's going to help out. And to that end, let's look at this over here. So if you look in your tool sets, oh, got the wrong screen up here. Am I sharing right the one there, Skip?
And we're back to you again.
Ah,
There we go.
the
Now we
high
got-
def version of me.
All right, now we got something worth looking at.
So if you're using the tool and you've been using it all year long, we have these 4 pillars. And the reason that we have these 4 pillars is to add that context. So it's really easy to adapt. This is a framework. So if you're familiar with ITIL, if you're familiar with NIST, if you're familiar with any kind of like agile framework, you understand that it's a context to work within so that you can make adjustments easier. So when you use this, these 3 pillars don't change that much. Your architecture is your architecture. Your risks are your risks. Your service is your service. Now, depending on how your client's year went and what their priorities are, is how you're going to see these 3. And so asking the open-ended question when you come in and do the annual review, or asking it as your initial segue in your annual review, hey, how'd this year go? Tell me about the best part of this year. And if you get that, then you're going to be able to say, while you're talking strategy, well, given that context, here's how I recommend we adjust the sextant to adapt to your business to make you more successful. So when you're in here and you're looking at your strategic QBR, you will look down and you'll ask that open-ended question. You're like, hey, you know, I'm trying to create our executive summary here. Here is what we have, but I'd really like to know from you so I can shape this, and then let them tell the story. But then come down here and work with them on prioritizing the outcomes of those 3 other reports. So which of these things, given the pandemic, given the election season, given all this stuff, takes them to the next level? And so you'll want to reprioritize this based upon their feedback. And if you do that, you're going to be way more successful than if you walked in there and said, hey, you need to buy a new firewall this year. Looks like you had a good year. I think you can spend this money, like Skip said.
Yeah.
And instead say, tell me about your year when you're up here as part of your agenda. This is the strategic session. Ask them about their year. What went well? What didn't go well? How can we help? The how can we help part, you're going to move down to here. This has all been done for you. You already did this earlier this year. You already did an infrastructure assessment. You already did a service assessment. You already did a risk assessment, and all of these are populated. Now, in your annual roadmap planning session, you're trying to create a context from their story and then build a roadmap that reflects that. I have some of my people I talk to in my business groups right now locally that have had the best year. I mean, they're like, I get that other people are suffering right now, but this year has been amazing for us. We don't know why. Like I have a restaurant down the street. They make the most amazing cheese Phillies. And like they're in the side of a gas station. That they look like somewhere where like you're gonna get food poisoning, but we all know like that's where you find the good food. And they've had a record year this year. We don't know why. Maybe it's because people are just grabbing sandwiches on their way through the gas station while everywhere else is closed. But, you know, I asked them, I was like, hey guys, you know, how's this year been for you? And, you know, I know the restaurant industry has been hit hard. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know what's going on with everybody else, but we're having a great year. And so that is what you need to be asking. Don't make the assumption that you understand your client. Ask. Learn, evolve. And that way, when you sell this new help desk upgrade for your services, you can put it all the way to the top because you know what? They've got people working remotely. And now you have this new white glove service that's going to help people at home.
Yeah.
So let's prioritize that for November, December, and we'll add that extra $5 user on so that they can get white glove service at home.
Yeah, and that executive summary is well there. I want to mention that, I think we struggle. So I'm going to maybe project too much of myself in this. So take this or leave it, but
Okay,
the
personal stories are the best.
the engineer in me struggles with that executive summary, right? I mean, I want to write a synopsis of their environment, talking about, how the data comes into their environment, what sort of resiliency and redundancies they have set up in their compute environment, their storage environment. That's me. That's what I want to talk about. But that's not what your clients want to talk about. And so you really need to hone your skills on that executive summary. And let me give you the tip on how to do that. Shut up. All right? just shut up and listen to your clients. Do what Elm says. Ask those questions. All right. Ask them what went well. Take a few notes down. It doesn't have to be elegant. I mean, you're not writing an article for the Wall Street Journal here. All right. Just gather some information, get some details. I'll never forget one of the last ones I did. It was an amazing little snippet of time. And so I put together this executive summary. It was based on a previous conversation. We had a video conference with them, and then I had the opportunity to meet in person. And so I had made my notes in the executive summary from the video call. So just one meeting, all right? It wasn't a whole lifetime of working with these people, just one meeting where I asked a few questions. And I put that into like 4 sentences. I mean, it was a short paragraph. And when we hit the executive summary, I asked the CEO of the company, I said, from my perspective, this is what I kind of think you guys do. Will you look at this and make sure I'm understanding it right? So we position technology to support your business. And it was a very awkward 30 seconds. All right. I mean, he read that and then he reread it. All right. It should have, been a quick read, and he turned it into a long read. I kept my own advice in this case. I shut up. I let him read it. I let him reread it. And he came back and goes, that's pretty good. That sums us up pretty well. And in that moment, it switched. It transitioned. We moved from the technical to the strategic because he was beginning to understand that I'm there to help his business, and not just there to help his technology. I'm there to help his business. And so that's the goal that we want to work at in these. You want to drive that, executive, technical, high level. What's going well in your organization? How are you guys making money? What are the risks to your organization? What didn't go well? I mean, all these kind of questions come together to really understand where your customers are at. And then the technology makes a lot more sense. Then the sales side gets a whole lot easier once you're positioning solutions that help their business.
Yeah. And you just got to keep that in mind in the annual sessions. So remember, for all of you like watching out there, I was corporate IT. I was representing the people on the other side of the aisle. I came from that side. I listened to your guys' presentations and they sucked. I'm a technical person, people. I sat there and I just wanted to fall asleep. Now, given ADHD might have something to do with that, but I'm sitting there in this meeting wishing I was somewhere else, but I know I've got to get through this because I'm required to be here as a technical representative for this company.
Yeah.
And so then, that's where you start doing some introspection, like, okay, well, how can I avoid doing this with my internal people? And so that's where it came down to. One of the big problems behind your guys' annual sessions is they're so irrelevant. Yes, they do need this stuff. Yes, that you did close these tickets. I don't care. I've actually written the reports on how many tickets were closed and which ones did not meet SLAs. That was one of the things I had to do as a professional. And I started thinking, like, why am I doing this? What action items are we generating from this? Is it helping us in any way? And the answer was no, but the data looks pretty.
Yeah.
And so driving to that answer based on the context of your leadership and the context of your client is how you're going to get more sales. That's where the power of the lessons learned. So those of you who had success in lessons learned, that's where the power came from, because you were listening.
Yep.
And you were selling them things they already wanted. They didn't know you had. They don't know technology. They don't understand how this is going to take them to the next level. It may be the best thing since sliced bread, but if it doesn't apply to their economic standards or their business in this year or the upcoming year, they're not going to listen to you unless they have ungodly amounts of money to spend and they have fear of missing out, which is what a lot of MSPs try to do. Is they try to use that fear of
Yes,
missing out to sell products. Oh, if you don't get this, you're not going to be up to date.
or the best practices. I've fallen into that trap as well. So I was talking with someone the other day, and they were talking with their client about 2008 servers. Okay, still got the environment. Yes, support died January of this year. So we're coming up on almost a year past the end of support for this product. And you know what? It's still there. The building hasn't burned down. Mobs aren't beating. Well, hopefully mobs not beating down the door. So it's been. It's still there. Why? And are you still saying, hey, you need to replace this server because manufacturer support has expired on it? Is that still the narrative that you're using? I mean, your client doesn't really care. Apparently, the end of the world is not going to happen. You need to find out why that server is still there, what it is still driving in the business. I mean, if you really want to know, if you can't figure it out any other way, here's a tip: go around to the back of the server. There's a square shape, probably a cord with a black square shaped plug on it. Just pull that out. All right. If that thing is really important to the business, you'll find out. Okay. You'll figure out what's important and then fix it so that you're driving the business. All right. We don't really care about the Microsoft Service Agreement. I mean, what is that 2008 server doing for the organization? And then focus on that. Change your narrative. Please don't put in that project roadmap that's right there. Please don't put upgrade 2008 server as the name there. Okay. That may be a template that we use, but once it hits that project roadmap, make sure you're changing that to, fix the account receivable application or whatever it is that's going to drive the business. Put it in the content.
We'll cover that in a future update here, but there's a difference between an operational item and an annual agenda item.
Mm-hmm.
And we've hinted at that in previous emails that you've read, in previous community updates, but there is a difference between the two. And upgrading a 2008 server is an operational agenda item. Yep. It's like changing the oil in your car. Yep. It's just something that needs to be done. We don't need to call it out. It's standard maintenance. Now, why are we upgrading the 2008 server? Because we need to upgrade the entire accounting, the dynamic system, the QuickBooks system, whatever it is that is relying on that server to run. So the actual project name is update this blah, blah, blah ecosystem.
Right.
You need to figure out what that blah, blah, blah is, because everybody keeps using that phrase of, oh, I need to upgrade 2008 server. We got all these 2008 R2 servers out there. We need to upgrade them. Why? Why not consolidate them? Why not take them out to the cloud? Why not export the functionality off this server and create a cloud-based solution? Why aren't we talking about those things? Because you are stuck in operational mode. You are stuck. That's why we have the 4 pillars again. You are stuck over here. You guys kick ass in the architecture section. You love talking about this, but this is where you talk about why. Mm-hmm. So if you want to use the full ship illustration, the architecture, you're so busy cleaning the deck. You're so busy managing the sails and trying to get to move as fast as you can. You're adjusting the sails. You're trying to catch the wind as best you can, but you need to be going to Europe, and now you're going to Africa. And so you're making great time, as the forest cutters would say, but you're going in the wrong direction. But it's okay, because you're going to upgrade that 2008 R2 server, even if it disrupts the business, even if it causes downtime, even if it keeps them from selling more, you're going to have your stuff done. Yeah. And that is selfish. And that's the way a lot of engineers behave, because we see things in context of operations, not in context of business operations. That's when you need to move your mindset over here. And this is hard. But that's why we have a framework, because you can stay in your little playgrounds that you're amazing at, and then you can have somebody at your MSP play in this playground, because he needs to understand these 3 areas as well. They're all equally important, but they have to play together. Somebody has to coordinate the activities so that the roadmap makes sense, so that you're not just trying to go as fast as you can and observing best practices. You're actually going in a direction. And sometimes going in the right direction requires you to make some sacrifices. Maybe you're not going to go as fast as you thought you would, but you're going to make better progress. And in the end of the day, the better progress is how much money is your client making. That's the barometer. If it's a nonprofit, it's how well are they achieving their mission? Are they feeding more poor people? Are they helping more students? That is what the barometer is. That is the destination of your client. And if you're helping them get there, they're going to buy whatever you throw at them. Hey, if you get this help desk in place, your people at home are going to be more productive, and you're going to sell more, and you're going to have more uptime, and blah, blah, go down that road.
Yep.
If that help desk is increased, or these managed laptops are in place, your teachers at home are going to be more effective in the private school, because they'll spend less time trying to get their Zoom running and trying to get these multiple sessions going. They'll be able to maintain multiple monitors, which can allow them to keep track of their classroom as well as look at their agenda.
Yep.
Now more people are going to sign up for your school because you have the most effective online school. What did you do for them? You gave them a managed laptop with 2 monitors.
There you go. Technical solution versus the business solution.
So listen to their struggles. Listen to what's making things hard for them, and adjust this roadmap, because you've already audited. Remember, you've already done all this. This work is already done. You have this list because you've gone through the 3 audits we gave you. Now you're just organizing it. That's the strategic component. And that's what you need to focus on. If you do that during your annual sessions, you will make more money. You will have a lot in your pipeline next year.
Absolutely.
Even if it's not in the pipeline next year, it'll be in 2022. You'll at least keep it on the table.
Yes.
So that every time, let's say you have a basic account manager, this is really important, people. If you have a basic account manager out there who just started the job, doesn't have any idea what they're doing, and they walk into a client, and before they have this roadmap in front of them, they can see all the recommendations from the engineers from the past like 5 years. And they can see what was planned for 2021, 2022, and they can talk the client through how to get this roadmap. No one's going to forget about the managed laptops process because it's on the roadmap. No one's going to forget about the NIST recommendations for inventorying because it's on the roadmap, even if you switch employees, even if you hire somebody new. All your recommendations are still there, so your employee can simply focus on making sure this roadmap is relevant to the story.
And getting it on the roadmap is surprisingly easy to do. All right. So if you're laying this out, if you're setting the objectives and the reasoning why we're doing these things, you're going to get buy-in from the clients. They're going to go, yeah, that sounds good. Now, do they have the money to implement this project right now? That's another question. All right. But let's not deal with that one. Let's get the project on the roadmap. Once we do that, then we can begin managing the finances to it. But here's what's going to happen many times. All right. That project's going to get moved up, not back, but up. Okay. Something's going to come up. Something's going to happen in the environment. The client's going to go, you know, we really need this. And you're going to have the ability to go out there and go, you know, we've got that on the roadmap, but that's not going to happen for another year. Do you want me to go ahead and roll that up to the next quarter? Client's like, yes, we need to get that implemented. The sale's done. All right. So by putting these things on the roadmap, you know, and having that business context around them, you are going to close more business.
Yep.
We've seen it over and over and over again. You are going to close more business.
And you get a more loyal client that way too.
Yeah.
because MSP down the road comes in and says, hey, we can do this for cheaper. Your clients can say, yeah, but you don't understand this.
Yeah.
We went through MSPs like you before.
Yeah.
This is where the smaller MSPs are going to rule the world in coming days. They're going to shift and adapt, and they're going to cater to clients in ways that the large MSPs cannot. So for large MSPs, you got to find a way to adapt to your clients' needs. Otherwise, you're going to get phased out by these smaller, more agile MSPs who are going to come in and say, hey, let me create a custom roadmap for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be really hard. The switching cost is going to be really high, because if you got somebody who understands you, I think it was Skip, you were telling me one time, like, people are loyal to engineers.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps people sticky with your company. But what happens when that engineer becomes the owner, and the owner wants to move more into administrative function? They can't, because they'll lose this client.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of work shifts that onus onto the business, onto the MSP, rather than the individual.
Yeah.
And it keeps that context in a place where anybody in your MSP can fulfill this role, because they have the historical information, and now their job is to focus on learning about the client so they can adapt. That's it. You can always deliver a firewall, you can always deliver an access point, but delivering a roadmap that is customized to your client every year in November and October is where you're going to make a lot more money.
Yeah.
It has to be custom, and it has to be based upon their story for the year. Well, that was the tip for the week, is contextualize your roadmaps. Don't come in and dictate. Contextualize, have conversations, ask your client, how did the year go? And send this roadmap to them ahead of time if you can. Or send them agenda ahead of time, said, hey, I'd like you to prepare and let me know, how did this year go, so that I can adjust. If you do that, you're going to be great. It's a very simple mechanic, and we will all benefit from this if you start doing it. All right. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks, everyone.